Hello?
Hello, is this Jerry Brisco?
Yes, it is.
Mr. Brisco, this is Dustin Wellness from KMSU in Minnesota.
Yes.
Are you available for a few minutes here? Or?
I sure am.
Excellent. First of all, I'm here with my co-host, Ton.
Hey there, how you doing?
Great, man.
Good. Nice to have you on the line here. If you're ready, I guess we'll just start in with the questions.
Sure, I'm ready.
Well, let's get started with the basics. How did you get started in wrestling?
In professional wrestling, amateur wrestling, or just wrestling?
Well, I suppose professional wrestling.
Well, I went to Oklahoma State University, and I'd always wanted to be a professional wrestler. Danny Hodge, who was junior heavyweight champion of the world and three-time national champion at the University of Oklahoma, had been an idol of mine. And so I started at an early age being a fan. And then, of course, when my brother won the national championship at OSU, he went into professional wrestling. So I kind of just followed his footsteps on into professional wrestling.
Can you tell us a little bit about teaming up with your brother? I mean, was it easier back then to make it in the business having your brother with you all the time?
Not really, and we weren't really together all the time because he was started a few years ahead of me. So I just started with him, and for about 3 months, then he left, went to Texas, and I had a contract and went to Australia and spent a year in Australia working down there while he was in Texas, and then later he moved to Florida. And then after I finished up a year competing in Australia, I moved to North Carolina. And then we went our separate ways, and he won the heavyweight world championship. And after he lost the world title, I moved down to Florida. It was towards the end of our career. Then I won the junior heavyweight title and did my little deal. And after I lost it, we teamed up towards the end of our career. So we were kind of doing our own thing, and that was kind of the plan to begin with, because we thought it'd be better just to do our own thing in the beginning and then towards the end team up. So it was kind of an individual thing until the end of a career, and then I happened to team up with my brother, and we had quite a bit of success doing that.
Now, you mentioned your brother Jack. He had the NWA title on 2 occasions, I think, right?
2 or 3. I'm not exactly sure how many.
Were you ever considered yourself to be maybe in line for the title? I know Dory and Terry Funk both held it. Was there ever any talk of another brother team maybe having it?
Yeah, there was. There was some talk about having it, and during Terry's reign, and then at the beginning of Harley's run as champion, there was some talk, but it never developed out the way I wanted it to be. And so then Flair got hot, and then Flair started getting it, and so that kind of took the edge off of me. So kind of ended with that. But yes, definitely during Terry's run and during Harley's early run, that's when there's quite a bit of talk about me perhaps getting a title.
Well, can you tell us what it was like working with Terry and Dory Funk Jr.? You guys had quite a few bloody battles back then. What was that like?
Oh, man, working with the Funks, it was completely different when you work with them individually and as a tag team, because Dory was really the scientific, technical wrestler that would go out and push you to the limits through conditioning and just technical moves, and really would bring out the best of you. And you had a battle when you were in there with Dory, and it was a lot of fun. It was pure wrestling. But on the other hand, when you wrestled with Terry was a wild man. Terry was hardcore before there was hardcore. So you go out, and it was more of a fight than it was a technical wrestler. So it was totally the opposite than wrestling Dory. And I enjoyed both styles, and I think that's what separated my brother and I. We could do both styles pretty well. And so then when we'd have tag teams, you'd prepare for Dory. Dory would be in the ring. Then all of a sudden Terry'd come in, and the pace would completely change to a wild man, hardcore type action. Then, Terry would tag Dory back in. Then you'd have to be able to adapt to Dory style. I think that's what made them a very successful tag team, because they were just the polar opposites of each other during a tag team match. So it was exciting. It was challenging each time we went into the ring with these guys. So it was always a big challenge to wrestle with Fox.
Well, besides them, who are some of your other favorite guys that you worked with back then? Just a couple names.
Well, Rip Hawk and Swede Hansen were the champions in the Carolinas, and they were always a challenge too. And both of them, Rip was a smaller guy, and they could really go and had a lot of speed, and Swede was the big power guy. So there was polar opposites on those two guys also. We had a lot of matches with Hawk and Hansen, a lot of Mid-Atlantic Tag Team Championship matches with them, and it was always a lot of fun to work with a team like that. And then that towards the end of our career, or when we finished up, we were wrestling Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood, who were both kind of similar in style, and they were both very technical and very solid wrestlers. So it kind of fit Jack and I's style a little bit better than those other two tag teams I mentioned previously. But we were able to defeat Steamboat and Youngblood and win the World Tag Team Championships on 3 different occasions from those guys. So it was always a challenge, and we liked changing up the tag team challenges because it kind of challenged us to keep up with the style and everything. Then as we finished up our career, we moved to WWE and worked with Dick Murdoch and Adrian Adonis, who were fantastic. They were WWF at that time, World Tag Team Champions. So we had a year-long battle with those two guys, and were never able to defeat them for the title. But they were knockout battles each time we got in the ring with them.
We've also read around that time that you were credited with discovering Hulk Hogan. Is that true? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we were actually in Tampa, Florida, and after one of the events, the weekend, we decided to go and have an adult beverage at a local watering hole here in Tampa, and walked in the place, and up on the stage there was a live band playing, and looked up. Playing bass guitar was this 6'9" guy, about 300 pounds, with long bleached blonde hair and tan, just like he is nowadays, tan to the max. So holy cow, what a big guy! This guy might be able to be a good wrestler. So one of the barmaids that was waiting our table, we asked her about him. Well, that's Terry Bollea. I know him real well, and I said, well, we'd like to talk to him. So she, when they took a break, she went and talked to him, and he came over and sat down with us, and we asked him about pro wrestling. He said, I've been a fan all my life. He said, I'd love to give it a shot. So we set him up with a tryout with one of our Hiro Matsuda, a Japanese trainer here in Florida. First day he showed up, Matsuda broke his ankle, and we figured, well, that'll be the end of this guy. And the next day, Terry came back with his boots laced up tight and all iced down, and he said, I'm ready to go again. Well, holy cow, this kid's serious about it. So Hero put him through the mill again, and he kept coming back, and finally he broke into the business, and as I say, the rest is history.
Well, then around that time in the mid-'80s, I know you guys held quite a bit of stock in Georgia Championship Wrestling. You sold it off to Vince McMahon. What was your reasoning behind that? Did you kind of see that the territory system was starting to shut down, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I tell you, it's a combination of both. We saw the writing on the wall. Vince at that time was just headed out to doing national events all over, and he was cherry picking talent from the top territories and bringing them into his company. And we were bright enough to know that it wasn't going to last. He had a lot behind him, and when you're taking the top talents and territories were, because of the talent pool shrinking like that, the territory system was starting to dry up. And he had taken Roddy Piper from us, Greg Valentine, and several other top stars, Paul Orndorff. He had taken all those stars from us. So it was the writing was on the wall. So we gave him a call, and then we met and worked out a deal, and decided that was the best route for us to go on a personal standpoint, on a professional standpoint, and we've made the sell to him.
So now wrestling has become extremely mainstream now. What are your thoughts on what wrestling has become and what it is today? And I mean, do you think it was at all easier for people to learn the business and get in back in the territory days?
Back in the territory days, it was a little bit easier. It was still tough because you had, like I said, you had your tough guys like Matt. So each territory had like hockey calls, a policeman and enforcer that when somebody wants to get in, okay, you go wrestle this guy here, and he's usually your toughest guy in the territory. And he'd beat the crap out of these guys, just see what their desire was, see what their toughness was, and see if they wanted to continue with the sport. And so a lot of them did, a lot of them came back, and a lot of them made it. But it was tough to get in back in, but once you got in, it was easier to stay in because there were more choices. You had your journeyman guys that would go into a territory and last for maybe a year and then pack up their suitcases and go on to the next territory. So you had your stars that kind of stayed in one territory for a long period of time. And so nowadays there's only a couple of choices that you have out there. So it's difficult to get in. They look for a different breed of athlete than they did back in those days. And nowadays, these kids that come into the business, they're tremendous athletes. I have a tremendous amount of respect for them. And their schedule's just really almost obscene because they're working. If they're not in the ring, they're doing promotional gigs and things like that. So they have very little time to themselves, and they're major stars throughout the world. So it's really tough on them. But I have a lot of respect for the modern day wrestler now.
Well, obviously, throughout your career, you are Hall of Famer and had a very decorated career. But a lot of younger fans probably know you more for some of your comedic stuff you did with McMahon and Pat Patterson. What are your thoughts on that? Are you okay with having kind of that second career there?
Yeah, I sure am, and I used to kid Pat Patterson all the time and tell him, Pat, we worked our entire career trying to make everybody believe us and make everybody, respect our in-ring ability, and both of us were fortunate enough and good enough workers where we did, So I said, but you know what? We'll go down in history as two stumbling, bumbling corporate stooges, and that kind of seems like the deal. I'm proud of that because it was a completely change of personality, completely different change of style, and, we made it work. And Pat and I, during that Attitude Era, were probably just as hot as anybody else and meant as much to the Attitude Era as anybody else on the roster. So we're both very proud of what we accomplished doing that. And, it is kind of funny that, two guys that were serious like we were, because Patterson was known as one of the best scientific wrestlers in the country at the time, and and I thought I like to think I was right alongside of him up there, and then we turned into these corporate stooges type characters on there, but we made it work, and we were very successful at it, and I'm very proud of it. And I have no shame about it at all. I thought it was fun. It was especially you get at our age to be involved in something like we're involved in, and being able to still get in the ring and contribute like we did, and I feel that we really contributed in making that era as successful as it was. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. So, what is your involvement in the business today?
Right now, I'm a WWE talent scout. I go to all the universities. Matter of fact, your guys are in Minnesota. I'm scouting the guy. They got another year at Tony Nelson, and what a beast he is. I think he'd come out and follow Shelton Benjamin, who was a gopher, and also Brock Lesnar, who was a gopher. I think Tony, if he likes, next year when he has a senior year, that he could come out and make a lot of money and be the next gopher in line. There's a long line of them from Vern Gagne all the way down to Brock Lesnar that's come out of that school up there. So I'm a talent scout. I go all over the country to national tournaments. I just finished up a trip to Des Moines, Iowa for the Junior College National Championship. So that's basically what my duties are. I'm a talent scout for them, and I'm really enjoying it.
Excellent. Well, we got to say we're huge fans, and it's been great having you on. Do you have anything you want to leave us with? Any final thoughts?
Well, I'd like to everybody that's out there to. I'm very involved in Save Olympic Wrestling. Everybody knows the news about what's going on with the IOC. Go to themat.com, and it'll lead you to different links where you can get involved and help save Olympic wrestling. It's the world's oldest sport known to mankind, and one of the very first sports in the Olympics, the ancient Olympics, and one of the first sports in the modern Olympics. So for the IOC to make an uneducated private vote to eliminate wrestling, I think was the biggest mistake the IOC's ever made, and I'm really happy with the outcry of the press, the television press, and the news print press that's really gotten behind amateur wrestling and Olympic wrestling. But we need to save it for our kids of the future and preserve the world's oldest sports. Go to mat.com. It'll take you to all the links that you can help get involved. Doesn't cost any money, and it's not only a United States problem, it's a global problem. Russia has over 6 million kids in wrestling. The USA has over 1 million kids that are in youth wrestling. So it's the youth of America and the youth of the world that's going to be affected by this. So everybody needs to step up to the plate, get involved, and save Olympic wrestling. And you can do that by going to mat.com.
Excellent.
Awesome. Thanks, Jerry.
Thanks so much.
Wow. I appreciate it, guys. Have a good day.
All right, you too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.